Peace, peace, family. Come on in. Come on in. Today we're going to be talking about negotiation tips. Felt like hopping on this thing and dropping some knowledge, dropping some science. So we're going to wait till some folks come on in. Peace, family. Come on in and get you some good knowledge and advice. All right. Come on in. Come on in. We're going to be talking about negotiations and just a couple of tips as to how to negotiate whatever it may be. Your job, if you have a business, relationships, all of it. You can use all of this. All of this. So drop in the chat where you're from too, so I know who's represented out here. Yeah, come on, man. Get this set up right there. Come on in, family. Again, we're going to be talking about negotiations. How to negotiate. A couple of tips. Something real quick. We're not going to be long, but we will be strong on this. So, yeah. Just waiting for a couple more people to pop in. So, yeah. All right. T-shirt. Yeah. Black lawyers matter. You see it. Gotta represent. For sure. Alright. So like I said, I'm not going to be long, but I will be strong with this joint. For those who just tuning in that may not know me, I'm Saber, an attorney based out of DC and Maryland, practicing business law, sports entertainment, and estate planning, intellectual property. Everything that encompasses protecting your assets and your business and your brand, I'm your man. All right. So today I want to touch on negotiations. And we know negotiations happen in everything that we do. You negotiate your food. You negotiate, your interpersonal relationships. You negotiate when you're going to go out to work. If you decide to work that day. If you decide to do whatever you want to do that day, you negotiate, whether it be with yourself or with someone else. And negotiation, when it relates to business, is key because a lot of people can be taken advantage of and exploited if you don't have a couple of these tips in mind when you do negotiate, right? It's based on just the relationship that you have or that you're cultivating with another person. So, for instance, if I want to open up my business and I want my business to be a brick and mortar shop, meaning that I need to have an actual physical location, then the rent may be going for, let's say, $1,600 or $2,000. All right. But I might not be able to pay that, or I may not want to pay it. So we talk to the landlord and we let them know exactly how much we're able to afford, or at least the price that we want to pay. But there are steps to do it. You don't just jump in and say, hey, I see you renting it for $2,000 and I only have $1,800. Because if you go into a negotiation like that, then you already hit your max. And you have no leverage whatsoever to be able to say, okay, well, I want to save a few more dollars. Or maybe you didn't want to spend all of the $1,800. Perhaps you wanted to only spend $1,500. Or you want to spend $1,750. Either way, you never jump into negotiations at your max, right? So it's a couple of things. This is in no order, but it's a couple of things that you want to keep in mind when you're actually negotiating any type of agreement or deal relationship or whatever encounter that you have. The first thing would be you have to identify the interests of both yourself and the other party, right? So when you come into negotiations, you need to know exactly what it is that you want and that you want to get out of the actual negotiation. So say, using the same example with the rent, say that you want to pay say the rent is $2,000, you want to pay no more than $1,750. The landlord wants to get exactly $2,000, maybe even a little bit more, right? But either way, it's negotiable. The amount of the rent is the going rate in that particular neighborhood. Excuse me, in that particular neighborhood, in that business, right? So you don't start off with saying, okay, I want to pay $1,750. You have what's called an anchor, and you start with the an amount that may shock the person, but at the same time, it's one of the lower amounts. So if you want to pay $1,750, you may start off with $1,400, right? You may start off with $1,400, and of course, the landlord is going to say, no, definitely not doing that. There's no way that I can even, the rent isn't even going for that amount in any of these neighborhoods that are nearby, nor in this particular community, and then they typically either will give their counter offer, or it may be some time before they get back to you at all. If it's completely outrageous, then they may not get back, but for the most part, they'll get back with, no, it's $2,000, you need to pay $2,000, I can't go lower than that, blah, 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 blah. That's what they tend to do. So, but, and then you all can, go from there. But you have to identify whatever the interests are. So if the interest is more so tangible, meaning if it's money, property, any type of resource, then okay, this person wants money for this. This person wants to get this house or this property, right? You know what you're working with. So now you can't negotiate on the basis of something that's intangible. So say the intangible aspect of it, which could be a benefit, is respect. You know that that's not their interest. So you don't want to start or lead with that. It may be something you throw in, to incentivize the deal, sweeten the deal, but you don't want to start with that. That's something that you have to identify exactly what their interests are. And then on your side too, what is it that you want from the deal? What is it that you want from this agreement that you have? What are you seeking? You have to know that, because when you enter into any negotiation, you can't just be with the wind. You have to have a plan, and you have to execute that plan, right? So that's the first thing, identifying exactly the interest. The second thing would be, as you're engaging with the other party, there has to be a play of and a balance of assertion and empathy, right? To empathize is not to agree. Let me repeat that. To empathize is not to agree. One more time for the one time. To empathize is not to agree. Because I empathize with you does not mean that I agree with what you're saying. It just means that I understand what you're talking about. So if you come to me and you say, all right, well, I have only this amount of money to pay for this particular product, and then you give me the backstory of, how maybe you lost your home, or you think that this is a situation that's dire for you, and that you're just in a tough spot, and this is all you can afford. That's cool. That doesn't mean I have to accept it. But to empathize with the person is to understand where they're coming from, understand the basis of it. Even if it's a deal like, for instance, if you have two companies, so, let's use business as an example. If you have two companies, right, and one company may be going bankrupt, the other company wants to buy them out, acquire them, things like that. There are certain aspects of what the company that's going bankrupt are going through that you can empathize with, to say, dang, they're in a tough spot. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to agree to the terms that they put in there. And the same applies in the reverse. You can use empathy to be able to extract certain emotions, because people buy based off of emotions for the most part. So you can extract a certain type of emotion out of a person, by using and playing on empathy. Say I'm a college student and I'm looking for a place to live. I'm looking for housing, and my income it's not even fixed. It's like it comes when it wants to. As a college student, it may come during those refund check times. So, but your income isn't consistent at all. So that's something that you may want to use to negotiate with someone who may have kids that are in college, or in school. So you will play on that and say, okay, well, they have a person, they have kids that are in school, and I know they seem like the motherly or fatherly type. So let me use a little bit of that to get the deal done. So you may come to them and say, I know you have kids, or I see that your kids are my age, and it's really tough. How was the experience in school for them? And we say, they're having a hard time adjusting. They're in their first year of school, and they're just getting acclimated to everything. Yeah, I'm going through the same thing. I'm out of state. I done came from Ohio, and now I'm going to school in Texas, and it's just a tough spot for me. I only have this refund check, and all I can afford to pay up the 6 months until I get the next one, or whenever it comes, is this amount. So you want to use all of that to be able to negotiate a better deal, on your behalf. Because a lot of times, these are the things that happen in negotiations. You have to research the person that you're entering into the agreement with, and understand exactly where they're from, again, what interests they have, what spots they may be in. Do they need to sell this place? Do they need to sell this product? Are they working with somebody above them? Because that's another thing too. When I was doing personal injury law, a lot of times dealing with these adjusters, they have supervisors. So you may negotiate with the adjuster, and then the adjuster says, oh, well, I can't go beyond this threshold. You do it again, or you say the amount again. Say, I don't know, my client really can't work with this, so, oh, well, it's out of my hands. I can't do this. I'm like, okay, well, take it out your hands and put it to your supervisor. Let me talk to them, because I don't want to go back and forth with you about this. And especially if you don't have the final say, let me talk to the supervisor directly. So the same applies. You need to understand exactly the entire playing field that you're working with to be able to negotiate better deals. But you have to use that empathy. There's a time to be assertive when you actually say, okay, well, this is my bottom line. This is what I'm dealing with now. I literally just had a case where I used that, and we were able to settle for my client and the amount that they wanted. So nonetheless, you being assertive also plays a role in all of this, because you don't want to be a pushover. You don't want to be somebody that just agrees with everything, because if whether you're representing yourself or you're representing somebody else, they can be getting the bad end of the deal. So you don't want to just agree just because you don't like you don't like conflict, or you don't really like going back and forth with people. It's off-putting. You don't like arguments and things like that. That's all cool. But when we're talking about business, you got to get down to the business. And a lot of times you're going to be you're going to be engaging in situations where you're going to have different personalities. So everybody isn't going to be easy to negotiate with, to engage in business with. You got to learn how to maneuver through all of those personalities, and you have to have an anchor and be assertive in places and in spaces that you need to, and then also exercise empathy in situations when you need to do that too, right? So another thing that I like to use is a phrase like it seems like, or it appears as though, because what you don't want to do is assume. As lawyers, we always are taught never to assume. We don't assume anything. Even in my personal life, I don't assume anything. I just ask specific questions to get specific answers. And if the answers aren't connecting, then, I ask more questions to get the answers I'm looking for, to be honest. But never assume anything, because when you assume, not only does that saying apply, but there are a lot of details and facts that can be left off the table or out of the realm of conversation because you assume things that are not true. So anytime that you are entering into negotiations, one of the things you want to do is to actively listen to what the person is saying, and then repeat it back in some form or fashion. So that way they understand exactly what it is that they have just said that you actually understand. So for instance, if I say that, I'm in using a college example, if I'm in a tough spot as a college student and I only have $1,400 to pay for rent, I may, in response as a landlord, say, okay, so you only have $1,400. All right. And then they go on with the conversation. And again, they may say something like, I'm from Ohio and I'm here by myself and I have no resources. Okay. So you have no resources in this situation. So it appears as though, you're in a tough spot. And then you get that other person to affirm that or confirm that, and from there, again, these are all tactics that you would use in order to get a better bargaining position during the negotiation. But it seems like it's much better than saying, oh, so you think that, or why is it that you think that I can reduce my rate or reduce my fee because you can't pay it? You see how antagonistic that sounds? You see how off-putting that is when someone approaches you that way. And it also seems very closed off too. It seems like you already came with your opinions and your position, and you're not open at all. Anytime that you're negotiating, you want to have an open mind and remain open during the process, because you never know what may happen. You never know what angles you can hit by you being open, as opposed to being closed off, because they can throw something in at the last minute that you weren't expecting, but you also didn't know that you wanted. That's that intangible type of resource, or it could be tangible too. So say if you enter into negotiations where you actually wanted a particular position, right? And in this position, you may be doing work that takes you out of the spotlight. Let's just say that. But you low-key like the spotlight. You like attention. You like being able to hear your name or maybe see your name in a marquee in some way, shape, or form, or in emails, whatever the case may be. So in that instance, as the other person, the other party, I would, knowing that, doing my research on you, I would say, okay, I may come with a lower amount if this is a job offer, but the incentive or the intangible aspect that I'm adding to the deal would be once a week, you may have a presentation in front of our board of trustees, and you can talk about how the company is progressing, how we're hitting our goals, things like that. Or we may have sponsored events where we have celebrities and different entertainers and artists that may come through. You're going to be the one that's the host, and we do this every year. So you'll be the host every year. That's another way that you can throw an intangible resource in there in order to sweeten the deal, right? So these are all things that when you have an open mind, you can kind of see like, okay, I may not need this aspect, but I do like this, so I'll take that. You get it? So throughout the process, you want to stay open and just make sure that you identify the interests of each party, including yours. Make sure that you show empathy and you balance that with assertiveness, because you need that duality. And then you always actively listen and affirm what the person is saying without you actually agreeing to it. Just making sure that they understand that you understand. You understand. And being able to use terms like it seems like, helps with that whole process. And at the end of the day, the last thing is figuring out what your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, BATNA, is. And that basically is saying, look, I'll use myself as an example. As a lawyer, you know that litigation is always on the table for the most part. Anytime that we don't want, things aren't going the way that we want it to, or maybe a deal seems to be going south, or perhaps we already have an agreement and someone violates the terms of that agreement, and we're attempting to negotiate how to settle it or how to remedy it, and the other party just like, no. Litigation is always on the table, right? So what is the best alternative to the negotiated agreement? If you know that this agreement between you and another party, if it fails, this may be more money for you that you have to expend. This may be more resources and time that you have to take out to remedy this. It may not be the best alternative to not do the deal. You have to figure out how to get it done, right? But say you are expending a lot of money just going back and forth with this company or this person. Perhaps you are a business owner and this company is based in, so say you're based in California and this company is based in New York or DC. And this isn't something that you can negotiate via Zoom or through email or anything like that. This is a situation where you have to see the person in person, right? And a lot of situations are like that where you want to just be face to face with the person. You don't have time to be flying back and forth and doing all of that. But, you have to analyze all of it and say, okay, well, if this doesn't work this way, then is this something that I actually want to do? Or are these resources that I want to expend? Even with litigation typically, let's use intellectual property, for instance, right? We all know that intellectual property, and this is copyrights for my artists out there, and then trademarks. It's also patents, but I don't cover that. But let's say copyrights and trademarks. Somebody infringes on your trademark and they start using your logo. You decide, okay, you send them a letter, cease and desist. All right, I need you to stop using our logo. Stop anything that has to do with our brand that you're infringing on. They ignore you. Then you're thinking, okay, filing a lawsuit in this instance may be very costly, but it could be effective and you can get attorney fees on the back end. So from your perspective as the person who's being infringed upon, it's like, I may not want to spend these resources, I have them, but I may get more money on the back end from that because I get profits, attorney's fees, and statutory damages, which is a lot, which is why, side note, you shouldn't be infringing on people. But from the person who is the infringer's perspective, it's definitely cheaper for them to be able to say, you know what, nah, depending on who they are, because if you have somebody like a conglomerate, Apple, Microsoft, Google, who infringes on other people's trademarks, or, well, let's just stick with trademark, they may be able to say, all right, let's just pay this out. Let's just give them a settlement and, we'll be good. Or they can say, we got the capital to go toe-to-toe with y'all, and we think that there's an issue with this anyway. So maybe you didn't register the copyright, the trademark properly. Maybe you didn't register it at all, So, but just depending on the parties, and the resources, you need to look at what will happen if this deal does not go through. What's the best alternative if the deal doesn't go through, right? So those are a couple of tips. Like I told y'all, I'm not going to be long, but I will be strong with the information. A couple of tips on how to negotiate, just generally, whether it be business, personal, or otherwise, and implement those things. And when you do, hit me up and let me know how it goes for you. Also, if you have any questions, definitely come on. You can send them to my DM. All my information is on my account. So follow this page. share, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, and share this page, and yeah, I talk to y'all soon. Peace.